So don't any of you think that I was pulling this stuff off of the wall. I didn't do that. I'll bet you it was.
She wanted that hillside right there, you know?
Yeah, it's a beautiful view. So part of the plaster that came off the wall at the house, I'm gonna put it back. There's more Winchesters. He's excited too. But this is part of the plaster from her Llanata Via. And I'm going to put it right back in a spot on her grave. There you go, Sarah. Put some extra, little extra on top. So I tried to find a quieter place to talk to you, and I went into the rental car, and that wasn't working out. And I went into our room, and my husband's in there watching the game, and I'm like, this isn't working out. So I need to come back outside. I hope the traffic's not too loud. So I hope that you guys can hear me okay. I wanted to tell you about Sarah Winchester. So Sarah Winchester was the wife of William Wirt Winchester, and he was the heir of the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. His father, Oliver, had bought the company and passed away and left it to William. And then William was in charge of the company for about 3 months before he died of tuberculosis, and he died really young. And it's really sad because he and Sarah Winchester, they grew up together in New Haven, Connecticut, and his siblings and her siblings were like all friends, and she and William, they were friends. They were always together, and grew up and got married, and were high society and doing all the high society things, and got married and had a child. And their little child, Annie, she passed away at about 6 weeks old. She had a disease of her gastrointestinal disease. She just didn't make it. Little kid couldn't digest the food properly, so it's just super, super sad. Just a little tiny baby. Sarah never had any more children. Years after that, William passed away of tuberculosis. So I think that she was just didn't remarry. That was the love of her life. She was finished. She in turn ended up having to take charge of the arms company. I don't believe that she was the sole owner, but she was a huge face to the place. And she lived in New Haven, and she had rheumatoid arthritis, which is one of the reasons which I connect with her so well, is because so do I. And she was suffering pretty tremendously out here in New England. Now, the legend and the lore is that she met with a medium, and the medium told her to move to San Jose and build a home and keep building it, and then that she would never die. So if you want to believe that legend, that's up to you. I'm not going to tell you what to believe, but what I believe happened is that she was suffering health-wise and decided to go west to San Jose, California, because her arthritis was so detrimental and it was getting worse and worse. She did buy a little farmhouse, like a little 8-room farmhouse, really small, little sugar shacks, just like what you would see out here in New England, built onto the place, and kept building and building and building and building. Now, I've seen pictures of the house at 7 stories tall, and it was great. It was really interesting. She was a novice architecture, interested in architecture, but she was an absolute novice, is what I mean to say. It was her hobby house, so she would try things, change her mind, move it around, have the crew rebuild it, and it was just kind of strange. Absolute oddities. She did own other properties in California, and all of those homes were normal, and no one really speaks of them because they were normal. They always speak of the Winchester because all of the abnormalities to it. The earthquake of 1906 did some damage to it, and I think that really gave her a hard blow because she'd have to start all over again, and it was just a lot of work. Now, during all those years, she ended up, she had the house and was constructing it over time for 38 years. She didn't live alone. She had her niece, nicknamed Daisy, lived with her also. People say she was a recluse and no one ever saw her. There's not a lot of truth to that. She actually would hold ice cream socials for less fortunate kids on the property. She housed several staff that lived in the house and on the property, would provide them with a home sometimes, and their children would live there. One of her staff, they had children and named one of them after Sarah. They named the baby Lockwood. That was one of her names. She named the house Yanata Villa, which means either plain house or house on the plains, to remind her of her trips to Spain when William was alive. They did a lot of traveling together. So she was sad. She was sad. She missed her husband. But during the 38 years that she was building and rebuilding and rebuilding and remodeling the house, she built an orchard. So this was someone back in the day who was taking on the conglomerates of guns and factories and all these high mucky-muck men in business. And she's this 4'10" frame woman, and she's showing up and she's giving direction, and then she's running an orchard, which in turn is pumping out apricots and walnuts and prunes. They're selling that produce, and then they're using the money in turn to finance the hobby house of Yanata Villa. No wasted Winchester money. I know a lot of people say, oh, what a waste of money. She didn't waste the money. Her house, it was nowhere in comparison to, say, like the Vanderbilts or anything. Nothing as opulent as that. It was very nice, and she had a lot of neat architecture and Greek mythology and a lot of different, you could see how time would change, and she would roll with it and add new architectural things to the house, but nothing like what you would see with, say, Filoli in San Jose area, or with the Vanderbilts or the Marble House in Rhode Island. There's not even close. So she wasn't wasteful. This woman was very, very prudent. I know in the later years people have said that maybe she went insane and was starting to build the house all cattywampus because she was nuts, which I don't believe, because she worked very closely with Franklin Lieb, who was her attorney, and he was a very well-known attorney. He would talk with Sarah regularly through letters. They would have lots of correspondence. They kept all of that stuff, and you can see it for yourself online. When she passed away, he said she was one of the most sound-minded people that he'd ever worked with. Towards the end of her life, I think she may have gotten to be a little bit maybe sad, maybe a little bit paranoid of what people were saying and doing, because people were already gossiping about her back then. They were already saying terrible things about her and creating rumors. She was classic Victorian. Okay, she was born in 1839. Her family was well-to-do. Like I had said earlier, they moved amongst New England society. So when she moved to California, she was amongst farmers. And these people weren't really in that loop where she'd grown up. They heard about it, but they didn't live it. And they would see her in town or something at a shop or whatever, and they would try to approach her and be like, "Hi, Mrs. Winchester, when can we see your home?" And she's like, "You ain't coming to my house. You're not coming to my house. What? I don't even know you." And to them, it came off as though she was being snobby. And then the rumors would run like, "I'll bet you she's rebuilding again because she's trying to appease ghosts because of all the awful they've done." Well, you could believe what you want. I believe the rifle didn't become popular through war at all. I don't think there's evidence for that. I think the evidence shows that it became popular through Hollywood. So do your own research, find that out. I love Sarah Winchester because she was a spitfire. She was a philanthropist. She gave back to the community. Whatever people say, that she was a recluse and whatever and didn't see people and was rude and stuff, that's not the Sarah I've read about and studied about. I gave tours through her house. I've met several people. I had to study, and everything that I learned about her, she was just a loving, caring, private woman. She loved her family, loved them, and wanted them to be with her. I think she had one knucklehead brother that, who knows where he's at. He could have had 1,000 Winchester babies. I don't know. I don't know. I do know, like her sister Isabel, she lived with her for some time, and these people were, like I said, they were philanthropists and they gave back to the communities. Isabel was part of the local ASPCA in San Jose area. So these people loved animals. They loved helping. Had hearts for orphans. I think Sarah, at one point, she had allowed people to meet in her home while they were waiting for their church to be built. And then to step out and run an orchard as a business. And I think even part of her, because she had employed 38 years, people for 38 years. And I think sometimes at one point she wasn't too eager to lay them off because of a lack of work. So she created more work and let them stay on. That's how she was. That's who I love. I can't wait to go to heaven and meet her, because there's not a doubt in my mind, no matter what you've heard, not a doubt in my mind that she's at the feet of the Lord with her husband and baby. There's a book I'll recommend. It's called The Captive of the Labyrinth. Check out that book. Read it. It is the closest to the truth that you're going to get about the family. And you'll get firsthand accounts from her niece and other people that were close and related to her after she passed away. And it will give you a better idea. So you can take the lore if you love that kind of stuff and you just choose to believe in that. That's your choice. You're a grown human being. But if you're a reasonable grown human being, you will also consider looking into the book that I told you about and what I've told you about, having worked there and studied immensely about her. Why I'm convinced she was just gold, just good as gold. Now keep in mind the seance part. We'll get into that. Some people assume that she had a seance room off of her bedroom. I'm not going to tell you what it was, if it was that. I will tell you that at the time seances were becoming all the rage. You have to remember, we were coming off the heels of the Civil War. A lot of people had been misled by certain congregations that if their loved ones had not been baptized before death, that they were in hell. At the same time, you have, a revolution going on of people learning, indoor gas, indoor plumbing, electricity, someone comes out and says, I think I found a scientific method to communicate with the dead. A lot of people tried it. And did Mrs. Winchester try it? Maybe. She might have. I don't think she necessarily did that in her home. I think she would have gone to a local medium in town. Still, I believe this was a born-again Christian woman. Just, I believe that she was misled. And I believe that she was hurting. And people who are hurting and misled often do silly things to look for comfort and reasoning. But I think she might have met with someone maybe once or twice to no avail, of course. Nothing was, nothing was solidified, and we don't have any history if she's made any communication with anybody. So I just like to put that to bed and explain what was going on at the time, because that's really where a lot of the I would have people come on my tours that were terrified to go into that house. They were absolutely scared to walk through it because they thought that it was like this Satan-filled home, and it's so far from it. And at the end of my tours, those people would be thanking me because I let them in the truth. I let them have, I took that persona away and replaced it with a reasonable, bugs. There was a big old bug on me. I don't know what it was. Never seen anything like that before. It's climbing up my arm. Composure. Anyway, so you could see why she meant a lot to me. And I'm so glad that I got out to visit her resting place and her husband's and her baby's resting spot. And my husband found, like, just right over to the right was Oliver Winchester's final resting place as well, which I thought was just awesome because I didn't know he was right there. All these years I didn't even know. And I did tuck a piece of the plaster from the house back into the land. I mean, it's just me. That's how I am. Not that she can reach up and grab it, and I know she's not there. I know it's just her body, but it was still special to me. So I hope that you liked it. I hope that you enjoyed this little bit of storytelling. If you have any questions, ask me, because I have books of stories about that place. Books. I'd be happy to share more. Just ask. So like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys again soon.